What if the most powerful spiritual awakening technique was deliberately hidden from you for centuries? The masters of ancient wisdom traditions, yogis, who achieved extraordinary states of consciousness. Mystics who transcended ordinary human experience possessed a secret so profound they concealed it from all but their most trusted disciples. Kundalini awakening, one of the most powerful pathways to spiritual transformation known to humanity, was intentionally kept behind closed doors, wrapped in layers of secrecy and warnings so severe that entire generations were denied access to their own divine potential. This is not just about ancient history. This is about you, about the power lying dormant within your body right now, waiting to be awakened. By the end of this video, you'll understand every secret, every concealment, every deliberately constructed barrier between you and spiritual awakening, and exactly how to work with this energy safely. You're part of an enlightened group now, those ready to reclaim what was always rightfully yours. But first, we need to understand exactly what was hidden and why the concealment ran so deep. For thousands of years, the knowledge of Kundalini awakening was transmitted through a system called Guru Parampara, direct lineage transmission from master to student. This wasn't just tradition, this was deliberate gatekeeping. In the ancient yogic systems of India, in the tantric schools of Tibet, among the Sufi mystics, and even in certain Christian mystical orders, the activation of this divine energy was considered so powerful, so potentially dangerous to the unprepared, that it could only be shared face to face. Often, after years of preparation and testing, the reasoning seemed sound at the time. Kundalini awakening involves the activation of a profound energy that lies coiled at the base of the spine. An energy the ancient texts describe as Shakti, the divine feminine creative force that, when awakened, rises through the central energy channel of the body, piercing through 7 major energy centers we call chakras, ultimately merging with pure consciousness at the crown of the head. This process, when it occurs, is nothing short of a total transformation of your entire being. But here's where it gets revealing. The masters knew this awakening could be spontaneous. They knew it didn't require decades in Himalayan caves. Under the right conditions, with proper understanding and approach, anyone could access this state. Yet they framed it as requiring extraordinary preparation, spiritual purity, and most importantly, their direct guidance. Why? In the cultural mystique of secret Eastern wisdom, there was power, authority, control. The Guru tradition created a system where the master held the keys to your spiritual liberation. This wasn't necessarily malicious. Many genuinely believed they were protecting students from harm. But you were told you needed an intermediary between yourself and the divine. The warnings they gave were severe. They spoke of Kundalini syndrome, spontaneous energy, surges so powerful they could shatter an unprepared psyche. They described cases of students experiencing violent shaking, overwhelming heat in the body, psychological breakdowns, even what appeared to be symptoms of mental illness. And these warnings were real. These experiences can and do happen. But what wasn't shared, what was deliberately concealed, was that these intense symptoms are almost always the result of forced awakening without proper foundation, or awakening in a state of resistance and fear. To understand why the masters guarded this knowledge so fiercely, you need to know what actually happens in the body and mind during awakening. This is where the ancient masters both revealed and concealed the truth at the same time. When Kundalini energy begins to awaken, it doesn't happen in some abstract spiritual dimension. It happens in your physical body, in your nervous system, in the very cells and tissues that make up who you are. Think of your body as an antenna, suddenly tuning into frequencies that were always broadcasting, but that you'd never been calibrated to receive. The physical symptoms are real and documented. Practitioners report spontaneous movements. Your body might begin to sway. Your hands might move into mudras you've never learned. You might feel compelled to make sounds or assume yoga postures you've never been taught. This is called kriyas in the yogic tradition, and it's the body's natural intelligence activating ancient patterns of energy release. You might feel intense heat, particularly along the spine. Some describe it as liquid fire moving upward through their central channel. Others report electrical sensations, tingling, waves of energy that flow through the body in patterns that seem to have their own intelligence. Your breathing might spontaneously change, becoming very rapid and shallow, or very deep and slow, without any conscious effort on your part. But the physical is only the beginning. The psychological effects are where the real transformation occurs, and where the master's warnings found their justification. As Kundalini rises, it doesn't just activate energy centers. It dismantles your ego structure. Everything you thought you were, every identity you've constructed, every belief system you've used to navigate reality, all of it becomes subject to dissolution. You might experience states of consciousness so far removed from your ordinary awareness that language itself becomes inadequate to describe them. Time can become non-linear. The boundary between self and other can dissolve completely. You might have spontaneous insights into the nature of reality so profound they shatter your entire worldview in an instant. This is why the traditional prerequisites existed. The masters taught that before awakening, you needed a strong ethical foundation, what yoga calls yamas and niyamas, the ethical principles that govern how you interact with the world and yourself. You needed a stable mind, developed through meditation practice. You needed a purified body, prepared through pranayama breathing techniques and physical yoga. You needed a grounded life situation, relationships, work, living circumstances that could support you through the intensity of transformation. And they weren't wrong about this. These foundations do make the process smoother, safer, more integrated. If you felt spontaneous energy surges, moments when your sense of self seemed to expand beyond your body, dreams of light moving through you, or spontaneous insights that seem to come from nowhere, these are signs this energy is already stirring within you. But here's what validates your unique experience. You didn't need a guru for those moments to happen. They occurred naturally, spontaneously, because this is your birthright. This energy doesn't belong to ancient masters or secret lineages. It belongs to you. It has always belonged to you. The truth is, these dangers were greatly exaggerated. Not because they don't exist, but because the real danger wasn't the awakening itself. The real danger was awakening in a context of fear, ignorance, and lack of support. The real danger was the cultural narrative that told you this force was something to be controlled, dominated, forced, rather than welcomed, understood, and integrated. In the West, when Kundalini started awakening spontaneously in people who had no framework to understand it, they were often pathologized, sent to psychiatric hospitals, given medications to suppress what was actually a profound spiritual emergence. The medical establishment had no framework for understanding that spontaneous healing movements, visionary states, and ego dissolution might not be symptoms of psychosis, but symptoms of awakening. But the democratization of knowledge has begun. Starting in the 20th century, yogis like Swami Vivekananda began bringing Eastern wisdom to the West. Teachers like Gopi Krishna documented their own Kundalini awakenings in scientific terms. Modern researchers started studying the physiological and neurological correlates of these states, and what they found was revolutionary. The human nervous system is capable of profound reorganization. The brain shows measurable changes in meditators and those undergoing spiritual awakening, increased cortical thickness, enhanced gamma wave activity, greater integration between brain hemispheres. In other words, this isn't mystical fantasy. This is the science of consciousness, the true science of energy awakening that yogis have understood for thousands of years, and that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to validate. But before I reveal the safe pathway, you need to understand what the masters really knew, the framework that makes this not only safe, but profoundly transformative. The ancient understanding of energy channels in the body is more sophisticated than most modern people realize. The chakra system isn't just a New Age concept or a metaphorical framework. It's a precise map of energetic nodes along the central axis of your body, each corresponding to specific nerve plexuses, endocrine glands, and psychological functions. But here's what makes this practical. Have you ever felt an inexplicable chill at unexpected moments? A sudden tingling in your hands, feet, or neck? These aren't random. Your body is signaling that energy is moving through these centers, even if you haven't consciously activated them yet. At the base of your spine sits Muladhara Chakra, your root center, associated with survival, grounding, your connection to physical reality and the earth. This is where Kundalini rests in potential form, coiled like a serpent, waiting for the conditions to activate. Above that, in the sacral region, is Svadhisthana, your center of creativity, sexuality, emotional flow, and the ability to feel pleasure and generate new forms. At the solar plexus is Manipura, your power center, where will, determination, personal agency, and the fire of transformation reside. In the heart space is Anahata, the bridge between lower and upper centers, where love, compassion, connection, and the capacity to give and receive operate. At the throat is Vishuddha, your center of expression, truth-speaking, the capacity to bring inner reality into outer manifestation through voice and communication. Between the eyebrows is Ajna, the third eye center, associated with intuition, insight, the capacity to perceive beyond ordinary sensory input. And at the crown of the head is Sahasrara, the thousand-petaled lotus, pure consciousness itself, the point where individual awareness merges with universal awareness. When Kundalini awakens and begins its journey upward, it doesn't just pass through these centers. It activates them, purifies them, reveals blockages and stored traumas, and ultimately transforms them into fully functioning conduits of consciousness and energy. This is the framework. This is what the ancient tantric texts reveal when you read them carefully, when you look past the deliberate obscurity and coded language designed to keep the uninitiated at bay. They describe a systematic process of awakening that, when understood properly, is not a mystical gamble, but a precise science. The traditional awakening methods were equally systematic. Pranayama breath control techniques like alternate nostril breathing, breath retention, rapid breathing. These weren't just relaxation exercises. They were designed to increase the flow of prana, life force energy, through the nadis, the 72,000 subtle energy channels said to permeate the body. When prana moves with power and clarity through these channels, Kundalini naturally responds. But why does breath have this capacity? What secret does this simple act hide? Great spiritual masters have spoken of breath as a master key, and modern science confirms its impact on your nervous system. You're not just breathing air. You're training your awareness to recognize the subtle energy that animates everything. Meditation practices, particularly those focused on the chakras themselves, visualizing light moving upward through the central channel, or holding awareness at specific points along the spine, these create the mental conditions for awakening. They train the mind to remain stable and witnessing even as profound energetic shifts occur. Mantra, the repetition of specific sound vibrations, has a direct effect on the subtle body. Certain mantras, like the bija mantras associated with each chakra, create resonance patterns that activate and balance these energy centers. Sound is vibration, and your entire subtle energy system responds to vibration. But here's what makes this practical for you right now. This is what spiritual masters deliberately concealed, wrapped in layers of initiation and secrecy, not because it doesn't work, but because it works extraordinarily well. They told you that you needed their permission, their blessing, their Shakti transmission. And while transmission from an awakened teacher can certainly catalyze the process, the fundamental truth is this: you don't need a guru to access your own divine nature. Here's what they didn't want you to know. You don't need decades in an ashram. You don't need to renounce the world and live in a cave. You don't need to be spiritually pure or free of all psychological wounds. You need understanding, foundation, a safe, gradual approach that respects both the power of this energy and the intelligence of your own system. The framework they concealed is actually empowering. When you understand that Kundalini isn't some foreign force being imposed on you, but your own evolutionary potential awakening from within, everything shifts. The symptoms of awakening energy surges, spontaneous movements, altered states, are your nervous system upgrading itself to handle higher frequencies of consciousness. When you understand this, you stop resisting and start cooperating. Preparation doesn't mean perfection. It means creating conditions of safety, support, and basic energetic hygiene. And this is where we begin the safe pathway. The foundation practices are simpler than the mystical tradition suggested, but no less powerful. Breathwork fundamentals are the cornerstone. Your breath is the bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, between your voluntary nervous system and your autonomic nervous system. When you learn to work with breath consciously, you gain access to states and energies that are otherwise outside your control. Start with simple diaphragmatic breathing. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Breathe in such a way that your belly hand rises while your chest hand remains relatively still. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, creates a state of relaxation and receptivity, and begins to move energy downward, grounding you in your lower chakras. Then explore alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana. Using your right hand, close your right nostril with your thumb, inhale through the left nostril. At the top of the inhalation, close the left nostril with your ring finger, release the right nostril, exhale right. Inhale right, close right, exhale left. This is one cycle. Continue for 5 to 10 minutes. This practice directly balances the Ida and Pingala nadis, the lunar and solar energy channels that spiral around the central Sushumna channel where Kundalini rises. When these channels are balanced, Kundalini awakening becomes smoother, more integrated. The body awareness is equally essential. Kundalini moves through your physical form. If you're disconnected from your body, living entirely in your head, the awakening will feel chaotic and overwhelming. But if you've developed felt sense awareness, the capacity to track sensation, energy, emotion in real time through your body, then awakening becomes a conversation between you and your own divine intelligence. Practice body scanning. Lie down in a comfortable position. Bring awareness to your feet. Simply notice whatever sensations are present: warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure, numbness, anything. Don't judge or try to change. Just notice. Slowly move awareness up through your ankles, calves, knees, thighs, pelvis, abdomen, chest, shoulders, arms, hands, neck, face, and crown of head. This develops the neural pathways that allow you to track energy as it moves. The safety framework has been reframed from barrier to empowerment. The preparation the masters spoke of isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming present. It's about developing enough awareness, enough stability, enough compassion for yourself that when the profound reorganization begins, you can meet it with curiosity rather than fear. If you felt spontaneous energy surges, moments when warmth floods your spine, when your heart seems to open beyond your chest boundaries, when insight arrives fully formed, as if downloaded from beyond your thinking mind, you're already awakening. Your system is responding to the call of higher consciousness. These aren't random anomalies. They're signals that your Kundalini is stirring, testing the pathways, preparing for fuller activation. What I'm about to share isn't a quick fix or weekend workshop promise. This is a 40-day practice. The ancient yogis understood, and modern neuroscience confirms, that 40 days of consistent practice is the threshold where temporary effort becomes integrated pattern, where new neural pathways stabilize, where your system recognizes the new state as normal rather than exceptional. You now understand why Kundalini awakening was hidden. You understand the chakra system framework and how this energy transforms consciousness. You understand that the warnings, while based in real experiences, were exaggerated to maintain control and authority. And you understand that the foundation practices, breathwork and body awareness are accessible right now, regardless of your spiritual background. The 7-stage awakening sequence that ancient yogis guarded for centuries requires precision, not just what to do, but when to do it, how to sequence the practices, how to recognize genuine progress versus spiritual bypassing or forced experience. In the next section, I'm revealing the complete framework that takes you from wherever you are now to systematic, safe Kundalini awakening. Stage 3 is where most people experience their first major breakthrough, if they do it correctly. This is where dormant energy suddenly begins to rise with clarity and power, where your sense of self begins to shift in ways you've probably imagined but never fully experienced. Stay with me. This is where transformation begins. This is where you stop being someone who reads about awakening and become someone who embodies it. Everything you've understood so far has been preparation. What comes next is activation. Now let's step into the complete awakening sequence. This is where we move beyond theory and into the sacred pathway that traditional masters reserved for their most dedicated disciples. What you're about to discover is the 7-stage framework that takes you from ordinary consciousness to full Kundalini awakening. Not theory, not philosophy. The actual roadmap. Stage 1, foundation. This is your grounding practice. Stage 2, activation. Here you develop energy awareness. Stage 3, breakthrough. This is where the first major shift happens, and I promise you, we're going deep into this one in just a moment. Stages 4 through 7. Crown union, samadhi, the complete union with cosmic consciousness. But here's what you need to understand right now. Stage 3 is where the real transformation happens. But you cannot skip to it. And here's why. Traditional tantric texts reveal this precise sequence for a critical reason. Each stage prepares your energetic body for the next level of intensity. Rushing ahead is like trying to run electricity through a wire that hasn't been properly insulated. The ancient warnings about Kundalini dangers, they weren't about the energy itself. They were about practitioners who tried to force stage 3 experiences without building the foundation in stages 1 and 2. That's the secret behind the secrecy. So let's build your foundation properly. Stage 1 is where we begin. Every morning, before your mind gets hijacked by notifications and responsibilities, you dedicate 10 to 15 minutes to this practice. Find a comfortable seated position. Spine naturally upright, not rigid. Close your eyes. And now, box breathing with a yogic emphasis. Inhale for a count of 4. Feel the air entering through your nostrils, expanding your belly first, then your chest. Hold for 4. Not straining, just pausing. Exhale for 4. Feel the breath leaving your body completely, belly drawing inward. Hold empty for 4. This is the foundation rhythm. Great spiritual masters have spoken of breath as a master key, and modern science confirms its impact on your nervous system. You're not just breathing, you're training your awareness to recognize the subtle energy called prana. Yogis say prana is not just the air we breathe. It's the life force that animates everything. After 5 minutes of box breathing, shift into the body scan for energy awareness. Bring your attention to the base of your spine. This is the Muladhara chakra, the root energy center. Don't force anything. Simply observe. You may already feel tingling at the spine base. That's your Kundalini responding to your conscious attention. That's not imagination. That's your energy body waking up. Slowly scan your awareness up through your body. Root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown. Just observing, just feeling. If you practice this foundation for 7 days, you will notice distinct energy shifts. Your body will feel more alive. Colors might seem brighter. You'll catch yourself taking deeper breaths automatically throughout the day. This is stage 1, foundation, and this preparation prevents the dangers traditional warnings mentioned. You're building the neural pathways and energetic channels to safely hold higher states of consciousness. Once your foundation is stable, after 7 days of consistent practice, you're ready for stage 2. Stage 2 is activation. Here you deepen your energy awareness through specific visualization. As you practice your breathwork, begin to visualize golden light at the base of your spine, right at the Muladhara chakra. With each inhale, see this light growing slightly brighter. With each exhale, feel it becoming more stable, more concentrated. This isn't fantasy visualization. This is directing your conscious awareness to where Kundalini energy naturally resides in its dormant state. You're essentially saying to your energetic body, I'm ready. I'm paying attention. I'm here. Continue this practice daily. Dedicate just 15 minutes each morning for the next 40 days. Habit is solidified after 40 days of consistent practice. You're not rushing. You're building something that lasts. Ancient masters developed this practice knowing that the body needs time to adjust, to recognize the new pattern, to prepare for what comes next. And what comes next is stage 3. This is what the masters reserved for advanced disciples. This is where everything you've built in stages 1 and 2 culminates in your first authentic breakthrough experience. Are you ready? Here's the advanced pranayama technique combined with visualization and mantra integration. You're going to work with breath retention at a deeper level. You're going to direct energy through the Sushumna Nadi, the central energetic channel along your spine. And you're going to activate Muladhara chakra with a specific seed sound. Sit in your practice space. Begin with your box breathing to settle into the rhythm. After 5 minutes, transition into this pattern. Inhale deeply for a count of 4, filling your belly and chest completely. Now here's the shift. Hold the breath for a count of 7. As you hold, visualize golden light at the base of your spine, beginning to move upward, just slightly, through the central channel of your spine. Feel heat, pressure, energy beginning to rise. As you hold, silently repeat the seed mantra LAM 3 times. LAM is the vibrational frequency of the Muladhara chakra. You're using sound to activate the energy center at the root. LAM, LAM, LAM. Then exhale slowly for a count of 8, releasing completely. As you exhale, see any tension, any blockages, any stagnant energy leaving your body. Hold empty for a count of 4. Repeat this cycle for 12 rounds. No more than 12 in your first week of stage 3 practice. This is intense. This is powerful. This is not something you push too hard, too fast. Now let me be very clear about safety. If at any point you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or excessively anxious, return to normal breathing immediately. Open your eyes. Ground yourself by placing your palms on the earth or the floor. This practice is potent. Respect it. But if you stay within the guidelines, if you've prepared with stages 1 and 2, here's what you can expect. These are the experiential markers of authentic Kundalini awakening. Physically, you may feel heat at the base of your spine. Not imagined warmth, literal heat. You may experience spontaneous kriyas, which are involuntary movements or shaking as energy releases blockages in your system. Don't be alarmed. This is energy moving through you, clearing pathways. Emotionally, you may experience waves of bliss, sudden unexplainable joy or peace. Or you might feel temporary intensity, old emotions surfacing to be released. Suddenly you might feel a strong need to cry. This is the release of old burdens from the body and soul. Let it move through you. This is part of a natural process. These feelings aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of awakening. Energetically, you may feel pressure at your third eye, the space between your eyebrows. You may feel tingling at the crown of your head. These are signs that energy is beginning to rise through your chakra system, activating higher centers of consciousness. These aren't random sensations. They're proof of authentic awakening. And here's the most important thing I can tell you. You now possess what took traditional yogis decades to access. You've compressed ancient wisdom into a clear, actionable pathway. You're part of an elite group who knows the complete truth. But stage 3 is not the end. It's the beginning of the true ascension. Let me give you the overview of stages 4 through 7 so you understand the complete journey you've just stepped onto. Stage 4 is energy rising. This is where you experience the chakra by chakra progression of Kundalini moving up your spine. From root to sacral to solar plexus. Each activation brings new capacities, new awareness. what ancient masters knew as the serpent's ascension. Stage 5 is heart-opening. This is emotional liberation. Text. When Kundalini reaches your heart chakra, you experience profound compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. Old wounds heal, resentments dissolve. You feel connected to all of life in a way that's not intellectual, but viscerally real. Stage 6 is higher consciousness access. Third eye activation. Your intuition becomes a bridge between your inner knowing and future events. You notice synchronicities everywhere, recurring phrases, numbers that seem to follow you, events lining up in ways that feel beyond coincidence. Because they are. You're tapping into the intelligence that organizes reality itself. Stage 7 is crown union, samadhi, the complete experience of oneness with cosmic consciousness. Time dissolves. The boundary between you and the universe disappears. You know, not believe, but know that you are not separate from the divine. You never were. This is the pathway. This is what was hidden, and now it's yours. Before you begin this journey, let's talk about safety mastery. The traditional warnings weren't wrong. They were incomplete. Here's the complete framework. Physical preparation. This is why the foundation stages matter. Your body needs to adjust gradually to higher frequencies of energy. Forcing the process creates burnout, exhaustion, or energetic imbalance. But when you respect the stages, you build capacity naturally. Psychological readiness. Kundalini awakening dissolves the ego's grip on your identity. For some people, this feels terrifying. For you, it's liberation. You're not losing yourself. You're discovering what you actually are beyond the conditioned personality. The ancient texts framed ego dissolution as a threat because they wanted to control who accessed this power. But the truth? It's freedom. Pacing is everything. Dedicate 40 days to this pathway. That's the traditional timeline for foundational awakening. Not 40 days to full enlightenment, but 40 days to establish the practice, to stabilize the initial activation, to build the energetic infrastructure for the higher stages. You're not rushing. You're building something that lasts. And here's what that dedication brings you. Complete transformation. Not incremental improvement, transformation, personal power. You gain conscious control over your inner reality, which means you gain influence over your outer reality. You're no longer reactive, you're creative. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You're the conscious architect of your experience, spiritual belonging. You join the lineage of awakened masters, Tibetan monks, Zen practitioners, Sufi mystics, Christian contemplatives, indigenous shamans, every tradition that understood this truth. You're not alone on this path. Thousands have walked it before you. Thousands are walking it now. You're part of a living transmission of consciousness, existential relief. You finally have purpose. You have clarity. You have direct connection to the divine, not mediated through institutions or authorities. You become your own spiritual authority because you've done the work. You've activated the power. You've experienced the truth firsthand. And here's the ultimate secret, the one that changes everything. You were never separate from this power. The yogis didn't hide the truth of what you are. They hid the pathway to remembering it. Because when you remember, when you activate, when you awaken, you can no longer be controlled. You can no longer be manipulated by fear or scarcity or external validation. You become sovereign. That's why they hid it. And that's why you're here right now, reclaiming it. You came here seeking the truth about what mystic yogis deliberately concealed from the world. And now you possess it, the complete framework for Kundalini awakening, the 7-stage pathway that was guarded for millennia, the foundation practices that make this transformation safe and accessible, the understanding that this power was never separate from you, it was always yours to reclaim. Think about what you now understand that most people will never discover. Why the secrecy existed, how the chakra system functions as a precise map of consciousness. What actually happens in your body and mind during awakening, the exact preparation that prevents the dangers traditional warnings described. And most importantly, that you don't need decades of training or guru permission to access your own divine nature. This knowledge fundamentally changes your relationship with spiritual transformation. You're no longer dependent on external authorities or ancient gatekeepers. You have the framework. You understand the process. You know the stages. The only thing standing between you and awakening is consistent practice. If you're ready to begin this journey, here's your starting point. Tomorrow morning, dedicate just 15 minutes to the foundation practice. Box breathing focused at the base of your spine. Body scanning through your energy centers. Building the awareness that prepares your system for what's coming. Not next week when your schedule clears. Not after you've read more books or watched more videos. Tomorrow morning. Because transformation doesn't begin with perfect conditions. It begins with the decision to start. As you practice, keep a simple journal. Track what you notice. The heat at your spine base. The spontaneous shifts in breathing. The moments when ordinary awareness expands beyond its usual boundaries. These aren't random sensations. They're your Kundalini responding to your attention, testing the pathways, preparing for activation. And when you experience your first authentic breakthrough, that moment, when you feel the energy unmistakably rising, when your sense of self begins to dissolve into something vaster, consider sharing it in the comments. Not for validation, but because your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to trust their own awakening process. The advanced stages, the chakra by chakra ascension, the heart opening that heals old wounds, the third eye activation that reveals synchronicities, the crown union with cosmic consciousness. These unfold naturally once you've established the foundation. If you want to explore those depths, the channel offers ongoing guidance through each stage of the journey. You're not alone in this. Thousands have walked this path before you. Many are walking it right now. And everyone who's experienced authentic awakening started exactly where you are now, with the decision to practice consistently and the willingness to meet whatever arises with curiosity rather than fear. This is your invitation to remember what you've always been. Not to become something new, but to activate what's been dormant. The serpent fire at the base of your spine isn't waiting for perfect circumstances or spiritual purity. It's waiting for your conscious attention, your breath, your commitment to showing up for 15 minutes each morning, even when your mind offers every excuse to skip the practice. 40 days from now, you won't be the same person reading these words. You'll have direct experience of what the ancient texts could only describe symbolically. You'll understand why the masters guarded this knowledge so carefully. And you'll know, not through belief, but through lived reality, that you were never separate from the divine power you've been seeking. The journey begins when you close this video and sit down to breathe. Everything else is preparation. This moment right now is where theory becomes transformation.